I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Albert Wen. Albert, how you going, man?
Oh, good. Much better than last week.
Yeah.
For those who tuned in last week, it's like going through the stages of mourning, and now I'm on the way. So,
Last week was the
not
first week
actual
of
mourning. No
school.
one has died.
Yeah. Last week was the first week of school for you,
Yeah,
and this is
yeah.
week two, and you're in
No, second week of school. So right.
second to third.
So rinse and repeat
Ah,
twice is what
got it.
happened.
Got it.
It became really real, and the idea of teaching online for an undetermined amount of time sort of all crashed on me, and I was worried about how I was going to be able to sustain all of it. But I got it
Yeah.
now. No, I mean, I don't have it, but I feel
Yeah.
better.
Good. 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 Well, that's the first
Yeah.
step. Yeah. I can't say that I'm anywhere close to it because I'm not teaching any on class. Certainly not the way that you're teaching them. So, what changed for you from last week to this week?
Um, so after what I thought was a terrible um, meeting slash rehearsal on Monday, I started searching for um, ways to get better. I was trying to analyze the whole process, the whole class, and it's like, well, why do I feel like it sucks so bad? And so I went down that rabbit hole, and then I went down to the rabbit hole of, what do I think the students think they should be getting out of wind ensemble, and intellectually everybody knows what we can't do right now. We can't be in the same room together. We can't perform live music together. But another way to frame that is it's really two-way communication. It's interaction. And so I started thinking, well, maybe what we have to do now, it's not a matter of me trying to like cram some kind of content uh, into their brains that I think is valuable, that'll train them, make them better musicians. It's taking that content and making it more of a conversation so that when they come to class, it is an interaction. It's a give and take, and it's meaningful discussions, which will not replace music making, but what it does in a way replace is another form of communication. Like when we're in the ensembles together, we are communicating. They're doing things and I'm doing things, and it all means something to all of us. And since we can't do it through music, we'll have to do it through other things. And so it's been, in small groups work, because then everyone feels comfortable to share. And so that's what I did. Like I completely did a 180 and said, F that, I'm not doing what I was going to do on Wednesday, and I'm going to completely change the entire lesson plan. And I was going to do like some kind of group, I was going to do a group discussion on three really great recordings, and do it in a larger format. Well, instead, I just broke the piece up into chunks. The students still had to listen to the recordings, and then I met with them in small sections, after having also given them assignments, specific things to listen for and to have opinions about. And then we talked about it, and it was great. It was really cool. We were comparing tempos, and we were comparing approach to section sound. We were talking about how one conductor would bring this out versus another conductor bringing something else out. And so it was nice, and I did little to no talking, um, which is the other thing that I realized is like maybe the interaction here isn't me interacting with them,
Mm.
but it's them interacting with one another through opportunities to talk about stuff,
Mm.
and that's where I am now. When we're not doing like listening or whatever, that it's trying to engage them into sharing their own ideas. And then on Friday, we brought in a special guest. We brought in composer Jennifer Jolly, and she's such a great composer. And she wrote a piece. We had performed a work of hers previously, It's called "The Eyes of the World Are Upon You." No, yes, yes, "The Eyes of the World Are Upon You." It's based on the UT Tower shootings, the very first campus shooting
Oh,
in the country.
wow.
So yeah, she wrote it about that, and of course here it happens, like the first day of classes on a Monday morning, and so here we are talking about that within the first few weeks of school, and of course there's a violent shooting every however long, and so we were talking about that, but the whole idea was to get Jennifer to sort of talk about third date stuff, not
I know
not
exactly what you mean.
what I
Yeah.
mean, and she was completely into that, and it was great because I didn't. Composers do interviews like this stuff all the
Yeah.
time, and it always goes the same, right? Tell me about you, and how did you get to your
Yeah.
path, and then tell us about your music, and what's your favorite piece, and where do you start, and we did a little bit of that,
Uh-huh.
but it was more about just being real,
Yeah.
virtual teaching is hard. Virtual ensemble is hard. She is one of the most courageous composers I know in her willingness to attack really difficult
Mm.
concepts and difficult subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I wanted to do, because like I want to guide the students that I work with to a place where part of their mission is to say something honestly through their instrument. I think we think so often about, well, I got to make sure it's in tune, and we got to make sure that the rhythm is right, and I got to make sure that the dynamics are good, and we even say, we need to make sure that we're playing with great tone and that we're being musical. That's great, but are you saying
Yeah.
anything that means anything?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, um, have you removed all of the emotional walls and blinders that prevent the true nature of the composer's message, married with your own emotions?
Mm-hmm.
Are you preventing that from the audience, preventing that from coming out into the audience? And that sort of brings, that's why I wanted, my turn was to pick the
Yeah.
topic today.
Tell
And that's
tell
kind of why I
everyone
picked it.
the topic for the week.
Well, the topic that we'll ramble on about.
That we'll start and
Um,
then bop around
yeah.
5 or 6 other topics and then return to
Right,
some way or
right.
another.
Yeah, it was courage, because I think I need a lot of that right
Mm.
now. I think that, well, I know a lot of like books that I've been reading and things that I've been following talks about that, and I've always admired people who showed great courage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I haven't gone there yet, but to sort of try to identify what I think courageous acts are and what it takes to create one or be a courageous person. I'm not that obsessed with it necessarily. Um, but I now know what it is for
Mm-hmm.
me. I now know what courageous Albert looks like. And I know what Albert struggles with when faced with the decision of doing something that's comfortable versus doing something that's courageous.
Mm.
And so yeah. So, I thought that would be kind of cool to talk about. There are a ton of people who are like that, and we can, we have moments where we wish we were courageous. We have moments where we were, um, and yeah, see what happens.
All right, let's try it.
Throw it up
I
there.
gotta say that when you initially, texted me the topic, as we do back and forth, the day of,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And then I thought about it. I was like, wait, oh man, this one's a little tougher than I thought. Because my first instinct was like courageous, courage. To me, the first thing that comes to mind is there's a burning building and a fireman rushes straight into the burning building. That is, that's courageous. That's courage. And I think your initial prompt was like, courageous people that we know, people who have exhibited courage, like moments in our lives where we had to demonstrate courage. And I struggled because I was like, man, my life has been so like easy in the sense like I have nothing to complain about. And so then I actually threw it to my wife and I was like, hey, this topic, and she's like, no, you did this. And I was like, okay, I guess it's like a different definition of courage, but it still takes courage to do those things. The second definition of courage, and then I want to ask how you're contextualizing courage in your mind, is there's a show that I used to watch like a lot of, and it's called What Would You Do? I don't even know if it's a show it's still on anymore.
It is. I love
Yeah.
that show, by the way.
Okay, so if
Yeah.
you haven't seen it, for anyone who's listening, John Quinones, it's hilarious that I know his name, even though I like this is the only show that I've watched him from. But he always introduces himself when he comes out. But it's always some circumstance that's staged by actors in the show, and it's some difficult situation, and then it's like totally hidden camera. But it's always a circumstance where it takes someone being courageous to step forward and say or do the right thing. And I think honestly, when I first started watching that show, and maybe this is one of the aims of the show, was you see people just kind of saying like, "Oh, well, that's not my responsibility. That's not my business to say anything or do something about it." But then you see people who are like they're out there and they get over their self discomfort and they say and do the right thing to make a difference. Then he comes out and he says so. That's maybe a little bit. I would like to think that I would be the person who would speak up and do something if I ever encountered a situation like that. But those are maybe like the first two jumping off points for that word courage, for me at least. How about you?
I think it's the same. I think there's like the grand view of courage, fireman running in, firefighter running in, um, um, our military officers, our law enforcement. I mean, I think about that now. Doctors and nurses are still doing their job to save lives. So I think there's that part of it, like the whole um, forget oneself because the good of humanity is way more important at that exact
Yeah.
moment. And then there's the other side, that what I will call quiet courage, which is in the small decisions you make every single day. It's like they all require thought and I guess to boil that down, it's kind of like the courage to make decisions that are centered around your values, uh, and that's what drives you. And we hope that these values, I'd like to think they are, but that's where I tend to think, because if you're accused of being the nice guy or the one who is always accommodating, the other way to look at it is then you're also the person that's not um, choosing for themselves and choosing to do things that may be more important for yourself. And I'm telling on myself right now because I've been accused of being all of those things. And of course I want to be a nice guy. Of course I want to be liked. And of course I want uh, um, to have friends and be around positive people. And what happens is people ask things of you. And because, I'm a golden retriever, you're at this place where you're going to please people. Um, you may give up on some of your values because of that. And not that I feel like I've sold my soul in a lot of the decisions that I've made, but I think that I find myself readily saying yes to things, but then stepping back and saying, but why, why am I doing this again?
Mm-hmm.
I, no, I don't want to do that. But then you're in it, you said yes. And then, Asians, Asians, people tend to not want to fail and back out on things they promised they're going to do, and then you end up sinking your ship. And so, I mean, that's literally my life in a nutshell, you know.
Mm.
And I'm at, am I 44 years old now, or 43? I, I don't know, but it's taking me this long to figure it out.
I'm laughing
But
because
what
I'm at the
I,
point now where I have trouble remembering how old I am too. So,
yeah, I don't even think about it anymore. But I mean, what it boils down to is I realize that what I'm actually doing is, I know it sounds like I'm just, I'm being nice and I want to help people, but in a way, I'm compromising my own belief system. And that's where it all started for me and thinking about courage in that regard.
hmm.
And because I was thinking that I was compromising for the greater good, what was also happening was my voice and my opinion and my thoughts and what could be my positive leadership
Mm-hmm.
is being stepped on
Mm.
in the effort to be a nice guy, to be compliant, to go with the team, to be a team player. None of those things are bad. Let me say that to be clear.
Yeah.
None of those things are bad. But in your heart, what you're doing to be the team player isn't necessarily what you believe to be the best thing for the team. Shouldn't you say something about it? And that's where I find myself is not saying the things. And even, I mean, on and on and on. There's so many examples in my life of where I chose comfort, and this is so. And I'm going to blame Brene Brown for this because if it were not for that damn TED Talk, and then the book that I have right here with me right now, the Dare to Lead book, because I wanted to really think about how do I lead from the way that I view the world, a little more on the emotional side. Um, all of her tactics and her not her tactics, but the way that she writes and her belief system and how she speaks with people and how she leads, it resonates with me.
Mm.
And so that's why I started getting her books and going through them. And that's part of sort of it didn't start the transformation with me thinking about making decisions and the courage to stand up for my beliefs. It sort of codified it
Mm.
because I was already on that path, and now it's become even more important to me. And I'm pretty sure it's because my kids too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like I want them to know that their dad stands up for the things that he believes in. I want them to know that he's going to, whatever, if they ever want to know what it's like to be a good human being, if they're confused about it at all, then they can see their mom and they can see their dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a good way to look at it. So,
Would you say you've felt the need to rise to the occasion in the sense that you want to be the dad that you want to be for the kids? You want to be the husband that you want to be for Amy. You are forcing yourself to rise to the occasion.
100%. And I would extend to even more to that. I'm forcing myself to be the director of bands that I want to be. I'm forcing myself to be the musician and conductor that I want to be. And all of that is part of my value system,
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I feel like once I'm leading from that, a real belief system that I have named, like now I know why I'm making decisions in this manner versus, well, what feels good? I don't know. Well, what's your life mission statement? Go to that and, make it from there. It's much easier now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Back
good
to
lens to view things
back to
through.
something you said earlier, where it was.
Why are you interviewing me, by the way?
No, I'm not.
We're
I'm
going back
talking
and
to you. I'm
forth.
talking
No,
to you.
no, no, go ahead.
When you mentioned earlier about remembering to include the need to perform and play with your own intent, your own voice. Like, what are you bringing to the table through this performance? Um, it's I think it parallels what we're talking about here with that leadership component too, right? Like you can just play the right notes and do your job and do the things that are in your duties, but like what is the impact that you want to have long term? Uh, does your work reflect your value system?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. That 100%. Yeah, it's become that.
Ganatra is popping in. Hey Ganatra, good to see you.
Oh, yay!
Ganatra's like our number one participant in this
I love
series. I
it.
gotta say, I feel like we gotta. If we ever do get merch, Ganatra, you'll get like the first
Yeah,
the
the
first
first
item.
whatever,
Yeah.
the first whatever for free.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Exactly. Yeah.
DM us your size.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh yeah. Okay,
Um,
so your turn. I think I went for like 20 minutes.
well, I don't think you told. Okay, so you told us about your leadership courage piece.
Mhm.
You, uh, where can I ask two more questions before
Yeah,
we
no,
pass
no,
on that?
that's fine.
Where are you like in the grand scheme of things? Would you say like maybe early on in your life you were extreme pleaser, and is courage in this instance like speaking up or like saying no to things or voicing a dissenting opinion to what's been decided on? What's the example, and where are you in the grand scheme of things? Is this the best, the most courage you felt?
I think that I have, when I guess the best way to say it is I feel like I've rounded the corner, like in my evolution, like the way that I am thinking about. I understand my values. I know what I value, and I know what's important to me now. And now I'm no longer afraid to make decisions based upon those. So I feel like, if anything, I'm at the beginning of having found myself
Mm-hmm.
at 43. Uh, I think that's where I am. It's just with more confidence, and it's so silly, I've always talked about how I feel like I'm a late bloomer on all sorts of things, and ultimately it boils down to um, just being afraid. If I would just stop being scared, I wouldn't use this excuse of being a late bloomer to come late to whatever the decisions I've made, or to have developed the confidence. Here's something that's really silly. So last night I had a really weird dream, and it was about uh, I think it was me and my brothers, and there was this awesome waterfall that people were jumping off of. And I wanted so badly to jump off of this waterfall. Bad. So bad. But absolutely terrified. And I knew, like in my heart, like it's safe. People are doing it. No one's dying on the end there. I don't see any rocks. It's going to be a lot of fun. Why are you not doing it? It's just that right there sort of encapsulates my entire life and how I make difficult decisions. Intellectually, I understand that it's a good decision, that it's important, that I should do the thing that I'm trying to work up, the guts to do. But it's the fear that keeps me from doing it. And now it's sort of redirected. It's like, because it's not about me anymore. It's
Mm.
about a value system that I believe in.
Hmm.
You know, here's another really lame excuse. Growing up as a kid, and even before I got married, I could only talk to really attractive people if I had a reason to talk to them. And if I had a reason to talk to them, other than to ask them out or whatever. Like if I was really attracted to a person, but I was, I needed to talk to them about a work assignment or whatever, it was like that was my way in, and I could have great conversations no matter what.
Yeah.
But it was because it wasn't about me. It was
Mm-hmm.
about the reason to talk to the person. But if it was me wanting to ask someone out, that was never going to happen, and it still never happens.
Because Amy would kill you.
Like had Amy not kicked my chair in Bob Duke's class, we would not be married right now.
Nice.
Because
Amy gets all the credit. Is what we're
she
saying here.
does, because I mean seriously, she's the hot one that I would
That's
never have
awesome.
spoken to
That's awesome.
unless we were in a group together and I had to for a class, which then perpetuates the friend zone my entire life when I was growing up. But it all stems from the whole waterfall fear. It's like I know that this is okay,
Yeah.
and I know that this is safe. Ah.
Yeah.
But if
So
there was a kid drowning in that bottom of that the waterfall, or someone who needed help, I would go.
yeah, yeah, because it's not about you, and
No, it's not about
yeah,
me.
and there's a purpose, and
Right? Isn't it weird?
so in both those instances that you're describing, it's a mindset thing. It's like you're the same guy, it's the same circumstances, but if you can just somehow frame it in a way that's not that default setting, then you're able to do the thing.
Yes, that's 100%.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now I think my brain is 90% on that switch flip.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And down to you were saying earlier, about speaking up in a crowd. Like, okay, here's another example. This one I sweat for, and I would think that it wouldn't be a big deal. And this is recent.
I love
This is very recent.
This is
and
so great, man. I love
this
this.
will
I love where
surprise
this
you.
conversation is going because it's all these like real life scenarios that we're
Yeah. I mean,
bringing to
so
the table.
like, I do the whole photography thing, and I've committed to taking one photo every day for 366 days because that's what's in this particular year. But like right at the very beginning of Black Lives Matter, part two with Minnesota and all of Minneapolis and all of that with George Floyd, I really, really wanted. I was moved to make a photo that would represent the way I felt abstractly.
Hmm.
And Alex was playing with a bunch of Legos, and so the colors and the Legos and everything just sitting around. Just thought, well, what I wanted to do then was. There were two things that I wanted to do. One, he also had toys playing around, and I wanted to take two of his toys, lay one down, and have the other toy, stomp out the neck. But I thought, well, that's a little too obvious, and I don't necessarily want to be that obvious. But the juxtaposition of toys doing that created some like dissonance that brought some feelings up for me. But what I decided to do then was to get all the Lego pieces, the colorful Lego pieces, and line them all up in a straight line together as a form of solidarity.
Mm.
And that was my photo. So I took that one.
Cool.
But I was so nervous to post it because I couldn't. Here's the other thing. I posted it and I hashtagged it solidarity, and I didn't hashtag Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm sitting here going, you dummy. Why? You believe that.
Yeah.
You think that's important.
Yeah.
What is preventing you from doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is I never really speak out for social things like that. I just don't. I'm the dutiful Asian person, the ideal minority, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went back and re-edited it and finally hashtagged Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
But the old Albert would never have done that. Would have just left it the way it was and then moved on.
I was about to ask you that is, do you think that would have happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
No.
Yeah.
5 years, 10 years ago, I wouldn't even put a picture like that up.
Yeah.
I would have thought about it. It's not like I don't think about it. I always think about it.
Yeah.
But the difference is having the courage to put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it's going to be judged, knowing that it's going to form an opinion, and knowing that that opinion is going to reflect on me. And then I thought, but that's a good thing. So why wouldn't I? And the reality was, I was afraid that maybe it would upset some people,
Mm-hmm.
but that's dumb
Yep.
because it is what I believe.
Right.
And if that upset people, then awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what it should have done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I've noticed that
okay,
there's a.
your turn. I keep
I've
trying to
noticed
get
that.
you to.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I will bite. I'll be next. But I will say that I've noticed in our talks over the last couple of weeks on the variety of topics that we've kind of moved across, a lot of it has been just, an awareness to a thing so that you can then move the way that you want to move. So an
Huh,
awareness
yeah.
of how you're spending your time, awareness of what you're doing, how it affects other people, and awareness to yourself, like your self awareness. I think I told you this last week that since our talk from 2 weeks ago, I have been sleeping more.
Good
Um,
for you.
Thanks. Because I
Awesome.
looked at the calendar, I was like, okay, I've got like 2 more weeks that I need to sprint kind of hard. But if I break like a week in and I have a week where I'm just out of commission, that won't work
Yeah.
either. So
Yeah. You blow all of your deadlines.
actually, they're coming in pretty hot. They're either like right on or just a smidge over, uh, but man, I feel better now than I did a week ago, or definitely from 2 weeks ago. So
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, that's good. Okay, so your original prompt to me was courageous people in our lives or moments where we had to have courage. And it was easier, admittedly, it was easier for me to think of people around me who I think have had to exhibit courage. And I think you probably would share this sentiment too. Like the first person I actually thought of was my mom. And I've, as I've gotten further into parenthood, I've spent more time thinking like, man, like mom and dad were us at some point. Like they were probably pretty cool, or they thought they were cool in their 30s, and then at some point they became like mom and dad of what I imagine. But I'm realizing like, hey, are the kids gonna realize that mom and dad were cool at one point, or as cool as we can imagine ourselves to be at the moment? Um, and so I think about leaving Texas for the first time for grad school. And that was kind of scary. It's like, oh, I'm going to grad school. I'm leaving the state. I'm going to be by myself somewhere. And then you think about mom and dad who are leaving their country, as first generation immigrant kids born in the States. Our parents had to leave their home country in search of a better life for their future family. And my parents went to New York initially because dad was going to school in New York. And so mom is coming from Taiwan. She, you're, obviously there's the language barrier, which I think I can empathize with even more now, having gone to China so much the last 2 years. And like I grew up speaking Mandarin, but I was super self conscious about my Mandarin for the first half year, and all of a sudden here I am having to like speak in meetings and write emails. And it's just like, oh man, this is so hard. What does it feel like to actually have to move to that country and live there 24/7? So parents, that's probably my first category. Our parents having to do everything that they did to get to where they got and to afford us the lives that we've had growing up. And yeah, it makes me. Obviously, it's just because I can look at it in a different way now that I'm in the parenthood stage of life too. So
I completely feel you on that one.
yeah.
Yeah. Same. That when I think about that, that's the first thing I think about.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and dad will never give me the full story. They still won't. I don't know what. There's a lot of pain there, I can imagine, but I get bits and pieces of it when we talk now and then. But what sticks into my head was like they talk about how their intention was never to come to the United States.
Hmm.
It was they thought that they knew that there was going to be like this major rush of Viet Cong troops coming in, and they just wanted to get on the boats and just kind of get out of the way for a
Oh.
while. and then maybe come back. Well, you know, they get picked up by the US and they're like, we'll drop you off and you're just going to die, or you can just come with us. But if you come with us, you have to leave everything. All you get is the clothes on your back. Hop on the ship, let's go. You know, like right then,
Yeah.
I had to make that decision.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, man. Like that.
Yeah.
We've never had to experience anything close to that in our lives. So
No.
it's just like, so okay.
I mean, COVID's not even that close. No.
Yeah. There's like literally, you know, and this is me being tough on my daughter too, but you know, lately she's been doing this like thing, you know, like when things were getting a little tough, and we were talking before God that she was actually feeling a little, you know, a little warm today. She wasn't feeling great. So, but when she starts making that sound, I'm like, hey, listen, life is good. You got nothing to complain about right now. Okay. So I understand that this is uncomfortable or that this is difficult, but what are our options here? You know? And so, okay.
That kind of perspective is important.
Yeah.
My parents reminded me all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I didn't even want to.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
Most of the time when I didn't want to hear
Yeah,
it.
as good parents do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Ganatra says, without fear, you can't have the opportunity to experience courage/bravery. In a way, fear connects you to hope and helps you explore what you can depend on and how personally you can adapt.
Holy cow, look at that.
See, Ganatra's dropping some straight fire wisdom every week.
Every single time.
Every week, too. It's like
And that's
consistently
just awesome.
delivering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that fear, you know, there's that Kennedy quote, right? Is it like, I can't quote it correctly, but it's like, you know, bravery. It's like what you do in spite of fear.
Maybe.
It's not the
Sounds right.
absence of fear, but acting in spite of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Something along that's not the accurate quote, but there's something like fear's got to be there. You've got to be scared of it, but you still do the thing that you're scared of. That's when you have the opportunity to be brave or have courage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. You're right. So what else? Let's talk about moments of courage for you, Wei-Pan.
Okay.
I mean, I can name them. I can just go and go and go and go.
No, that's not fair. Really?
No, I know that. That's why I brought the topic up, because I'm like,
Okay.
oh, this is
Let me drop.
that's your life right now.
Let me drop
Let's
I'll
talk
drop a
about
small
it.
one first to my wife before we go on, because that's actually one that I couldn't say this the entire time that she was pregnant, but it completely terrified me. The idea of being pregnant, the idea of giving birth. Like, I think I would have chickened out, honestly, in watching her go through it, and just like my respect. I already respected her tremendously, but my respect was like 10x after watching her go through the whole thing. And actually, you know, I jokingly say this after our daughter was born, our first baby, and seeing it all happen, like, you're there, it's happening. And as soon as I was like, oh my gosh, that was unreal. Like, why isn't there a day where we celebrate just the incredible capacity of moms and what they do for their children? I was like, oh, we do have that day. It's called Mother's Day. But
Yeah.
again, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I don't think I understood what Mother's Day was until I saw her go through that.
Yeah.
So
Did not to bring up her private business, sorry, so you don't have to answer this, but was it all, do we go all natural? Do we do blocks?
it was all
Yeah.
all natural. She just took it like a freaking champ. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah. No, I understand it. I mean, you know, Amy's birth plan did not include that. We did a spinal block, whatever those things are called. We did something, right? And with Lydia, because we had so much trouble with I had no trouble with.
Like, man, I'm getting kind of
I
sleepy
should
over
stop
here.
saying that.
Are we on
I know. Yeah.
No, totally joking.
But Amy was like getting preeclampsia and we had major high blood pressure problems, and so we had a scheduled delivery date because of that. And it was calm. I mean, I was finishing my mid-tenure review profile or portfolio, in the chair. I remember this. I'm sitting here typing along, mid-tenure review, blah blah blah, typing along. The doctor comes in, and they check, and they're like, okay, well, we think it's about time. And the whole time, Amy and I are just kind of chatting and doing whatever. Like contractions come and go, and she's not. It's like totally calm, not at all what they show
Yeah.
on TV. And so doctor says, "Yep, I think we're ready to start pushing." I'm like, oh,
You're like,
okay.
let me put my folder
Close
up.
laptop.
Close my
Yeah,
computer.
exactly. And I set it down, and I was like, all right, do I suit up? I mean, what happens? Nope, you can just sit right over there. And they just came in, and calmly things happened, and poof, here comes Lydia. No
Um,
big deal. And literally, I was like, well, that was really disappointing. There was no
oh man,
screaming.
come
There was
on.
not, she didn't call me names. None of that happened. And so I guess so I thought, well, TV's got it all screwed up. This is not how it goes
Please
down.
tell me that round two was the complete opposite, and then you got the full.
Round two was
Yeah, you get the
100% complete opposite.
See,
Right.
balances out in the
all the
end.
way through. Yeah, because it was that was intense. Like I remember sitting at the coffee table, getting ready to go to work. It was a Monday or a Wednesday or a Friday because it was conducting class. The Amy comes downstairs. She says, "Hey, so I don't know if anything's going to happen today, but um, just be by your phone just in case. Like,
She got the spidey sense
just be
going
careful."
on.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, okay, not a biggie. Keep drinking. Get ready to go. We gotta go. And so there's, we have protocol, right? I know when she says we gotta go, I make a phone call, and Carol, who is our kid's second grandma, um, third grandma, she's the administrative associate at for the band program. Absolutely love Carol. I could not live without her. Carol comes over, and she takes care of Lydia, and we go. We get to the hospital, and we sit there, and and things move really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, so fast that they didn't have time to give Amy all of the
Yeah.
blocks. And like I remember the look in her eyes when she said, they're not gonna make it. We gotta go. And it was, yeah, that was intense. Like that was the television
Yeah.
scene that you see, that you probably
Yeah.
experienced. And I get it. The amount of adoration and respect,
Yeah.
yeah, is just overwhelming.
Multiple times
Yeah.
during the pregnancy, I'd be like, I couldn't say how freaked out I was about it. Even the act of being pregnant. It's like this is like a secret about Huei. It's like my like deep fear. This probably comes from being shown the movie Alien at too young of a age, but the idea of any sort of any sort of parasite or something that's feeding off of you, that's living inside your body, that just freaks me out to no end. Granted, it's your baby, so it's probably different, but I think maybe that's part of what freaks me out about it. But meanwhile, I'm being freaked out, I have to be like, "Hey, it's gonna be great. You're doing amazing. It's amazing." Inside, I'm like, "This is crazy. Are we sure you want to do? Are you sure you want to do this?" Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
super admire how much courage my wife exhibits. Okay, so I won't cop out.
yeah.
My and I have to also say that like I'm realized like how unaware, how I would say that I thought I was self-aware, but when you asked me this question, I was like, and I actually had to ask my wife, and she was the one that told me this, so I can't claim credit for the answer. This is her like speaking from outside and telling me this. So basically what she summed up for me is like, anytime I hit a crossroads where I could have taken this route or this route, and one's the easy one and one's the unsure or unclear one, I've always taken the unsure, unclear one. And I don't think I necessarily realized this about myself until she pointed it out to me. But a couple clear indications would be, I started off as an engineering major in undergrad, which made sense and that fit everything that I'd been doing up to that point. And then I was like, you know what? I really like playing music. I cannot imagine myself doing engineering for the rest of my life. I got to do music. I'm going to do that. that is not a good idea. I mean, like, I think if I was my teacher at the time, like, hey man, are you sure about this? Like, are you gonna die if you don't become a music major? Because otherwise, maybe just stick it out and do the engineering thing.
Was this high school or was this
No,
like
this is like
freshman?
freshman year of college. I'm like a year into undergrad, and second semester of undergrad, I start getting the like, I don't know about this kind of feeling. And I remember it started when I remember the exact moment that it kind of like, like I broke out of being on the track. The track being like you're doing what you're supposed to do, because again, that Asian thing is there, right? It's like your parents, you're expected to go
Oh,
be the
oh
engineer or
yeah.
the doctor. And I remember I was in the computer lab. It's like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're in the engineering building. There's like, it's like out of a movie scene. The terrible fluorescent lights are humming. You sit there, and I'm sitting there trying to debug something, and you run it, and there's an error, and you're just like and you're like trying to find the semicolon or the comma that's not where it's supposed to be. And so I do one of these bits where I take my glasses off and I like rub my eyes. I put my glasses back on, and I look over, and there's like 3 or 4 guys crowded around a computer, and they're like making some nerdy computer joke. And I'm looking over there, I'm just like, I gotta go, man. This is not it. I just like stood up and walked out. It's like I gotta go. So I mean, there's a lot
Oh
more to that
man,
story, but
yeah.
basically, so I chose
Sure.
music over something that would have been safer and more predictable, and so that's one. Um, I'd say the next maybe landmark moment where like I end up choosing. And again, I don't know if this is courage or this is me being kind of foolhardy about things, but things in Chicago after grad school were good. It's like I had a job that I loved. I had a coworkers that I loved working with. I had student body and community that I loved being a part of. Like things were good. And then my now wife, then fiance, was in Los Angeles, and I was like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll pick up and leave everything and go to Los Angeles with no plan. Like what? 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 Are you sure? Like, let's think this one through for a second. So that story that I've occasionally alluded to is that I basically had to start over from scratch. No network, didn't know anybody, no one knew who I was, and it was like terrible. But from that, I realized that basically I can pick up and move to any city at this point, and there's a level of being comfortable with like if I can do that, then I never have to worry about picking up and having to start over from scratch because that's what I did, and it was terrible, but I did it, and now I know how to do it. So if I ever have to do that again, I know I can.
Yeah. So what um why do you think you choose those things? What is your value? What do you value, or what is in your value system or belief system that forces you to look at the hard decision and say, yeah, yeah. Or in your case, actually, not even to realize that you're making a hard decision. It's just so intuitive. Where do you think that's coming from?
Hmm. I'm thinking because I don't know if I even know the answer to this.
Hmm.
Why?
Maybe you should know thyself way.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's got to come from somewhere. I mean, and I'd be curious to know, and maybe it will require some thought or perhaps even some more self-discovery. I don't mean to put you on the spot
No,
like
no, no.
that.
I have some
Um,
ideas, but I don't know. I'm sure it's like a few things layered on top of each other. I can give you like the initial things that
sure.
come to mind.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
I have a high sense of self-efficacy, whether it's like justified or not. If I think there's a chance it's going to work out, then I just think it's going to work out. Like I'm like uh I'm very comfortable with giving it a shot. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But like I'm willing to risk it. Even if it's a 51% chance, even if it's like a 30% chance, I'm willing to be like, yeah, I could probably make it happen. We were talking about traveling and getting stressed out, and I used to be the guy that would walk up to the gate 10 minutes before the plane was, which is the opposite of how I am now. Um, but
So
I'd be like,
crazy.
yeah, I got 30 minutes. All I have to do is execute everything perfect between now and 30 minutes from now. I could do that. So there is a little bit of naivety to that, but like a practical example of that is when I go to the store for something. My mom will always comment on like how I get the best parking spot, and she's like, "You always end up with the best parking spot," and and I noticed it's just like a very small thing. Like my mom will default to like, oh well, all the good spots are probably taken, so I'm just gonna take this first spot that I see. And I always drive up to the very front with the expectation that the first spot is gonna be there waiting for me. And even if it's not the first spot, I'll get like the second or the third spot. But the fact that I think that there's even the possibility of the first spot being open, that's what even puts me in the game to get one of those things. So I think that's probably the first one. Um, why do I make that choice though? I think the second tendency I have is to like I'll always imagine with no limitations before I make a decision. So inherently, whenever you are like, oh, what if I da da da, right? Naturally, the 10 things pop in like, well, that won't work because this, and this. And somehow that doesn't enter my mind when I start. When I think, okay, well, I want to do this thing. Well, how would I do that? Well, I could do this, and then it might be this, and that could turn into this, and I just go until I end up at the thing that's like, that's crazy. And I go, okay, well, I've just kind of made a plan that would get me there, and then I haven't thought about the 50 things that are going to make it wrong. But I think, okay, well, I've got a path that's going to get me there, so let's just do that. And then as things come up, I'll deal with it as they come up. I think that's what happened when I switched to music. I think that's what happened when I went to LA. I think that's what happened since I've joined the first startup. I think that's what happened since I've been in the most recent startup.
Yeah. So, absolutely. There's I was I'm having all of my conducting students do a skill survey,
Hmm.
essentially, asking them to imagine the finest conductor that ever lived, whoever that might be, and then identify the skills that those people have, categorize those skills, and then scale themselves against those skills. Where are you? How does this work? Where do you believe you are? And so I mentioned that to some friends of mine who, I don't do that kind of research, not because I hate it. I don't have time to like sit down and crunch the numbers and do that because my area of focus is somewhere else. But
You're
so
already
I
kind of
call
a rock
people
star
who
conductor. You're pretty much the best in the
no,
world as it is anyway. So you don't really
not even that. I do good to just turn on the lights.
Come on.
But the so I talk to my friends who are researchers, and they're like, there are tons of research out there. There's a ton of research out there, and it sounds like what you're talking about is efficacy, and there's research that says that people who think like you are as successful as you are and forge ahead, they associate that with a high level of self-efficacy. Uh, I think often about Elon Musk and Tesla. I mean, how many times did he fail? But didn't, at least we know of, didn't go crazy and go off the deep end. And surely it's because he knew that eventually it was going to be possible, you know. And the failure was just another part of that. Like you said, just a thing that you needed to work out. And then you go. It's like or like Bruce Lee, says be like water. Just go around
Mm,
it.
mm, mm, mm.
Go around it or go through it or go over it or go under it, but never let it stop
Yeah.
you.
On that "Never Let It Stop You" piece, I think there's something, and I was just trying to figure out where does this come from. I'm not sure, to be honest, but I think I have a high tolerance for not being afraid to fail either. Like, I don't like failing. Nobody likes failing, but I think whereas when some people fail, it's like the end of the world. My sister's this way. If she fails at something, it just crushes her, and she hates it.
I'm that way. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I admire people who think like that, like you. That when that part was, who are the people that are courageous, and the people that I look up to that are like that. I would say probably 9 times out of 10, all those people fall under that category. People who have a high tolerance for failure, or they just redefine what they call it.
Part of that redefining thing is part of the thing too, though, because it's like in my mind I was just thinking, it's like, wait, is that courage, or is that? Because I will say that I'm an optimist. Between my wife and I, she likes to say that she's the realist, and I'm always the optimist. I'm like, it's be fine, it'll be work out, and I'm the go with the flow one, and she's the planner, and this is how, like, we balance each other out, I think. But when I experience failure, back to what you were talking about earlier about just like framing it a different way in your mind, I can. This is a little bit foolhardy too. So I mean, I don't want people to listen to this and be like, "Oh yeah, Huei's got failures." Like, sometimes I hear myself saying this, I'm just like, "Am I just dumb?" so it's like, if something bad happens, I go, "Wow, that was a really hard lesson. That was terrible, but now I've learned this, and now I know that, and I won't make that mistake again." And I learned something. That was a really tough lesson. That's usually what I usually chalk it up to.
Mm-hmm. Have you read Ben Zander's The Art of Possibility?
Mm-mm.
You should.
I think I saw his TED Talk, but I haven't read his book.
Yeah, he talks about how when he makes a mistake, what you should say is how fascinating. And when you just said that, I was like, oh, that's totally Ben Zander.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I mean, yeah. Thank goodness for all of the mistakes that have been made in life so that we can drink coffee. I mean, think about all the bad shit that someone had to, like, smoke, dry, grind, drink, and then determine whether or not it was good. I think about that. And thank you, my friend Damon Talley, who's a director band at LSU, for bringing that up to me. And I've never, ever forgotten about it. A lot of people died so that we can drink coffee. Right? How did you, like, you pick this thing,
yeah,
but you don't eat it.
Yeah, I know what I'm going to do with that. Yeah. That or medicine. I think about that for medicine. Like something as simple as, well, there's two that come to mind, like Neosporin and Advil, right? And it's like, I know, like, my parents will give me eternal grief when I'm like, yeah, I have like a stress headache and I'll take Advil. Yeah, and my mother will be like, you're gonna die young. I'm like, okay, sorry. But when you go to China, like, you can't just go to the drugstore and pick up Advil. Like, you have to go to a doctor to get it. So my first couple trips, I mean, they were so intense, and the work and like the time difference and things like that. And so my first couple of trips, I just didn't pack any Advil in my travel pack, which is kind of weird in hindsight. I don't know, like, why. I don't even know how or why that happened. But I would just have these. I had these like excruciating headaches, where I had to like finish the meeting and be like, I got to go back to the hotel and just like lay down for a couple hours, and my head would just be killing me. And it's like, and usually if I get a headache, it's either I'm dehydrated, I've forgotten to drink water. I just, like, it's been like a day since I've drank water, or sleep is usually like the second thing.
Same, yeah.
Yes, but if I take care of those two things, it's usually okay. And then Neosporin, it's like, or any sort of antibacterial. This is not a paid ad, not sponsored by Neo. Maybe it should be. And this is our first potential sponsor there, Albert.
We'll take the money.
Yeah. but
we'll do whatever we need to.
Yeah,
I believe in Neosporin.
Yeah. I use Neosporin. I believe in it. Yeah, like Castaway. I mean, that's an older movie. Tom Hanks,
Mm-hmm.
when he's on the island, he's got a toothache. He doesn't just get to go to the dentist. He's got to freaking put a ice skate against his tooth and knock his own tooth out. That's bananas, man. So
No, I that scene, yeah. I think about that scene when when I think about the demise of our world and what things the people talk about what will become so important if we had some catastrophic event. Um,
medicine, man.
Antibiotics,
Yeah,
medicine.
exactly.
That's the gold.
You get a scrape on your knee and it gets infected and you
You're
die.
dead.
Yeah.
Or you lose your knee
Yeah.
and then you die because
Right.
then that gets really infected.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, well, there's little things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have a
Vaccines.
yeah vaccine for sure. We have a couple comments. Thanks, Ganatra, for chiming here. Let me read a couple of these off,
Oh
Albert, and
wow, great.
we should we've just crossed the 1 hour mark. So if you're still watching,
Oh,
listening, thank you so much. And man, this hour it always flies
I
by.
know.
So okay, Ganatra is continually picking the path of more uncertainty. That's a pretty cool habit to have, Huey. Staying true to your values and highest desires and taking ownership of your choices. Inspirational. Thank you. I and I
Mm.
I can't say it's been like, oh, I'm gonna do the thing that's more difficult. I can't.
I
To
think
your
it's intuitive for you. I mean,
maybe, but to your point, Albert, you're like, oh, I have a value system. It's like I can't take credit for that. This is like, oh, I made that decision that I'm always gonna do the hard thing no matter what. I didn't
mhm.
I didn't decide that in advance, so it just kind of ended up being a byproduct of the situation.
Well, I look in the end. It's just I think it's how we're wired.
Mm-hmm.
And we must. We're all in this rat race together. And we're all doing all of these things together. Yet we are wired differently.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to survive and succeed and contribute, maybe figure out how you're wired, and then use that to your advantage. And that's just what I've done. And it's a matter of being okay with being a golden retriever and then realizing that sometimes that's good
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes that's bad. And when
Mm-hmm.
it's bad, I have to do the harder thing, you know?
So, I say for me, the takeaway from our talk is like two pieces. One is that awareness component. I'm starting to realize like how if you'd asked me previously, I'd be like, oh yeah, I have a high level of self awareness. I'm starting to realize that it's like there are actually a lot of things that I should pay attention more to, like that wellness thing that you told me about a couple of weeks ago. Our topic from today, there's still a lot of room for me to be more self aware, but that's the first step. And then the second step is what you were just talking about, which is like having um, recognizing how you're wired, right? That's the self awareness piece. But then the second thing, like I think of everything now as if there's a problem or I need to fix something or I need to do something better, like let's create a system or a process that will just either prevent the problem from happening or solves the problem when it comes up. And it takes it takes the human part out of it, right? Like in your
Mm.
case, you just come up with your value system and then you use that when you face a situation, and then that takes care of the human part of it. And I'm not saying that we should take the human part out. It's more about just coming up with a thing to address how you're wired.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess so. I certainly wouldn't be able to make some of the really hard decisions I've made over the last few months if it were not for that, you know? Yeah. That's it, buddy.
All right, we did it. Courage.
Yeah.
Courage, episode 5 of 6.
Five of
Albert and Huey,
six.
talk
What happens
courage.
now?
Hey, I was kind of dreading this. We're coming up on the last episode next week.
Yeah, I
Should we
know.
discuss this next week? What's happening? Do we just maybe next week should be a recap of what's happened over? What have we gleaned or taken away from doing 5 of them? Is 6 the recap?
Yeah. Six is because I've grown from this. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, likewise.
Maybe that's what we talk about.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
Cool.
That's gonna take some self reflection.
Yeah, and figure out what we do from here. You've asked that before. I mean, this could still be something, right? We don't have like
So,
500 million views or anything, but that's not the point.
well, you gotta start somewhere. We've only done 5 of them, so
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Well,
maybe
awesome.
maybe we introduce a guest component.
Mm,
We have talked a little bit about that.
yeah.
Let's talk about it next week. Or do you have an idea?
When you
Here we go.
we got to figure
Before we bring in the first
when
guest.
way we got to do a play on names. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, if anyone's
Yeah,
watching
that's
this
cool.
and you
Well,
have
awesome.
a
It's always great talking to you.
good, yeah, likewise, man. Thanks, Albert. If anyone has a good idea for a play on words that will satisfy Albert's urge to have a good, clever thing for our title, please let us know in the comments below. Ganatra says, "Love how you two bounce off of each other and introspect." Thank you very much, Ganatra, and thanks for watching.
Definitely.
Thanks to everyone who might be catching this in the replay or watching these live with us and hanging out with us. And we'll see you next week, hopefully, for episode 6 of 6. We'll have completed our project. That's actually okay. I'm already getting ideas for what we're going to talk about next week. So,
All right. Well,
right.
it's your turn. So,
okay, yeah,
I'm at your mercy.
okay. I'll kick it off for us. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for joining. We'll see you soon.